What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Travis. Of course, this is TWA Motorsports, and today we're starting something that is going to get deeper than I've ever been in any vehicle before, and it's going to really test my knowledge. I don't know everything, even though I tell my wife I do. I don't know all the stuff we're going to do here. So, look, I've done a lot of motor swaps. Done a lot of suspension stuff. You guys have seen it on all this stuff in the garage, and we're still got a few outside right now. I've done LS swaps on stuff that came with LS's originally. So when I say that, guys, done LS swaps on Trans Ams. They came with an LS swap. Obviously, we did one on the Camaro. It came with one. This was a little different, but that was an option on this truck. This, on the other hand, never came with an LS. But I showed you guys a video a while back of me unboxing all the parts, and they're still sitting over there for the suspension. Here's the deal, though. I'm going to do all this at one time. It's going to be broke up in several videos, but we are going to go to an LS motor. At the same time we're doing that, we're going to do the suspension. So it's going to be broke up in different videos, obviously. I'd love to be able to pack it all in one video, but this is probably going to take a course of several months for me to accomplish. And in the meantime, I'm hoping to gather some parts for the Trans Am. So you're going to see, and then of course the Black Sierra and whatnot. So you're going to see other videos within this. But I wanted to start this. It's making me absolutely nuts. All the fluid that's coming out of the transmissions. I guess the older Power Glide transmissions, guys, are common for this. The converter drains back when it sets for quite a while. I am sick of fighting with this motor. I hate this motor. I am not a purist. I want a driver. I love this car. I don't ever foresee me selling it. This is what I've always wanted. This, more than any other car, this is like my ultimate keep car. I don't know why. I think because my grandpa had one, the stories, I love it. And so anyway, today what we're going to start with, I'm going to try to get the motor out of this in this video. Motor, transmission, and what little wiring harness there is. You know, the older stuff doesn't have a lot, so we're lucky there. I don't know whether I'm going to keep it on my Go Jack so I can move it around or not, but once we get the motor out, I just figured with the motor out, I've already got the stuff to mount an LS in it, which we'll get to a little later. It's all bolt-on stuff, but it also, I'm gonna weld it. Well, I'm not, but I have a buddy weld it just to reinforce that. But we're gonna do some test fitting, obviously, before we do any of that. But first we gotta get the old stuff out. And guys, I really think where we're gonna start here is I'm gonna see if somebody can come help me get the hood out of the way. I may go ahead and start under the hood a little bit, like taking the battery loose, maybe getting some of the coolant lines knocked loose. Some of that stuff, I'll go ahead and start. But ultimately, I'd like to have the hood out of the way. I think we're gonna have to have it out of the way anyway. And then maybe even the core support, I don't know. We'll just have to see. I really don't want to mess with that because that kind of ties into the fender, but it's probably going to have to come out anyway. I just don't think there's any way to bring that motor out with the trans on it. I really don't want to take the transmission off. I want to pull it all out as one unit. So that's the plan, guys. I know we got a lot ahead of us. So let me just kind of go over what I'm thinking. Obviously, we're going to do an LS. We're going to do a 6-liter. We're going to do a 4L80. We're going to do a very mild cam, probably just a stock LS9 cam, to be real honest with you, because ultimately I would love to put an LSA blower on this car. But for now, to keep cost a little lower, we're going to stick with the 6-liter. You guys saw that in a video recently too, where we took the heads off of it. We're going to be using on the Trans Am. I'm thinking some LS3 heads, an LS9 cam, just a stock LS3 intake for now. That's the goal with the 4L80 transmission. Get it running and driving with that. Obviously, all the suspension parts, we're gonna go to air ride, we're gonna change the wheels, we're gonna get this thing on the ground. But I ultimately thought that getting the motor out of the way would give me more room to run like brake lines. It'll give me more room to run fuel lines, more room on the suspension, just more stuff that I can knock out all at one time. The other thing is the driveline angle. You know, we want to get it set with the LS, and then we were going to weld our stuff on the rear end for the rear suspension because we have to set our pinion angle. So I really want to just do all this at one time. I don't want to be cutting stuff off later because the pinion angle is wrong, or trying to set the pinion angle here based on the rear end. I'd just rather get it all at once. So I know it's going to take longer to do it that way. But like I said, guys, we've got other stuff that we'll be working on randomly within this whole group. But let's get started by, I'm just gonna unhook the battery first. Just tried to put my hood light on here after getting the battery out, and the hood's not wide enough. You know, they're not like these new hoods. So here's my plan here. Okay. Look, I'm not gonna be keeping the battery where it's at, so we might as well go ahead and get that out of the way as well. We already got the battery, obviously, off the tray. And I'm sure, guys, I'm not even gonna give you, as far as, most of this car is standard as far as wrench size. I'm not gonna give you guys that because depending on what you're working on, it may be different. And so this is gonna be more of a following me. Now, when it gets down to the suspension and stuff, maybe those things are the same, but as far as pulling the motor out, that's really gonna be depending on what kind of motor you've got. So I'm gonna go ahead and get that off the firewall as well, so we can get that out of the way and it's not impeding with anything we're trying to remove. Look at all the room we freed up already. Man, we're killing it. Okay, we got that off. Okay, so I'm gonna get my coolant drain pan, which is also my oil drain pan. It's my everything drain pan. I'm gonna put that underneath, and we're gonna go ahead and knock the upper and lower radiator hoses off. And it looks like there's a transcooler line down there we'll probably take off as well. Yeah, down at the very bottom. Might as well get that starting to drain. And then aside from that, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and, I don't know, I was gonna take the master off, but I think we'll wait a little bit. We're gonna go ahead and we'll just get this draining, see what kind of, I know that's gonna make a mess. No ifs, ands, or buts. It's going to. And then I may take the generator, I guess you would call it, off and get it out of the way. Just a couple bolts to get these wires off. That looks like a hairdryer wire right there. But if we loosen that up, we should be able to swing it over, get some tension off of it, and get the belt off as well. So far, we managed to get a few things off. Obviously, you can see we've got the generator out of the way. The wires that were to it are over there. I think I took the bracket off, the orange bracket that came up here, just because I thought it'd kind of get in the way. I'm gonna leave this one though, that goes to the manifold. And then I got the heater core lines both popped loose, one here, one up top. And I'm having trouble getting the water pump one freed up. I know that I've got a huge mess. Most of it hit the pan, but you still have some dripping down there. But either way, I'm gonna see if we can get that lower radiator hose loose and then this upper. And then, like I said, I still haven't, well, I haven't even messed with the transmission lines down there. I guess I need to pop those loose as well. I was just kind of wanting to try to catch as much fluid as I could. And I may go get a different pan. Got the trans lines knocked loose. Actually, guys, those are really easy. They're hard lined. And got that lower radiator hose loose and the upper. So at this point, I'm going to see if we can go all the way down and unbolt the actual radiator and just get it out of the way. Look at the room that gave up. So the only bolts were 3 on each side holding that thing to this cross support. Okay, on to the next step. I think I'm going to attempt to get the exhaust manifolds loose, not on the block, but the bolts that go into the bottom of them. They come up from the bottom, there's a flange. I'm gonna see if we can crack those loose. I think we'll probably be able to. Everything's been relatively easy so far. The other thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take the oil bath, or not the oil bath, but the cover off, the carb cover there, or the air cleaner. And then I think I'm gonna take the fan off just because I'm gonna see if we get some additional room by doing that. Got both the exhaust manifolds, or not the manifold, but the pipe to the manifold. You can see that one I pulled down. Now I'm kind of working on stuff that's probably not going to be real easy to show. So I'm going to unhook the steering linkage right here. I'm going to unbolt it right there at the actual linkage up top there. I think we're still going to have a couple spots down below we're going to have to do. But I also have unplugged the coil right here. Basically all the wires that are coming out of the firewall and going into the engine, we're gonna go ahead and loosen up and get out of there. Aside from that though, you know, like I said, guys, the older stuff, there's just not as much. We're pretty much freed up aside from, I need to go ahead and loosen the fuel line. I'll do that as well because we do have that line there. And that's pretty much it on the front side. And then everything that, like I said, the wiring for the coil and whatnot, that stuff there. I did also unhook the throttle linkage. You can see it setting right here. Unhook that already. So just working our way through those little things, and then we'll probably be on the bottom at that point. Got a huge upgrade now. The hood's gone. Got that out of the way. So now my light is shining right under here. So guys, I've got everything loose up top. I still don't have, I need to unhook the fuel pump. So I've got everything loose up top, and now we're gonna slide under the bottom. Hopefully we can get some good light under there and see what we need to take apart down there. I know we're gonna have to take the drive shaft out, obviously, and I may wait till another day. I'm gonna try to move this thing over. Another reason why I wanted to leave it on these guys is I can move it over and clean up my mess and then move it back. That way I'm not rolling around in a bunch of coolant and transmission fluid. I got that fuel pump disconnected, or at least the line. The rest of it's all contained on the engine. But I was telling you guys, I thought I had everything. And the reason I thought that is because all the stuff that came out of that little grommet there on the firewall was all the electronics or whatnot for the coil, and some of it goes to the wiper, but I thought that was it. But that little wire that goes all the way across the top there, that's the trigger wire for the starter. And so I had to get that unhooked, as well as the power wire that went from there to where the battery was. So now everything basically from the transmission forward is unhooked, but I don't want to take the motor mounts out until I've got a cherry picker over here. But I'm going to talk to my painter guys. I really think we're going to have to pull the core support at least. I don't know about the grill. Chances are I probably should, so I don't damage it. But I'm more concerned with, you know, if I pull this core support out, which there's like several screws all the way around it, I may be able to leave the closeouts here on both sides. But if I pull that out, how flimsy are the fenders going to get? I have a feeling they're going to get pretty loose if I do that. But I'm going to talk to my painter first and see what he thinks. And I think it kind of all ties together. It probably would be okay, but I just want to talk to him first. So the other thing, guys, I did slide under this, just kind of looking before I move it out of the way. I'm going to let it set overnight, let it kind of drain this crap that's draining the coolant and whatnot. Then we're going to clean it up in the morning and start on the bottom. But I think we're going to have to tackle the exhaust, the speedometer cable. I already got the kickdown cable I left because it's hooked to the motor. I did disconnect the other linkage. I told you I disconnected the linkage right here for the shifter, but there was another one that I disconnected. I just pulled the pin out. But aside from that, I really think the speedometer and the exhaust is all we have left to get this thing. Just take the trans bolts out, the motor bolts out, or motor mount bolts out, and get this thing out of here. So I came out here early this morning, pushed the car over, cleaned the floor, and now we're ready to get under it. And I'm laying in bed last night thinking, look, you have a lift. What are you doing? But ultimately, guys, I only have a few things to take off down here. So I don't even know that I necessarily have to take the exhaust. We're going to look when we're down there, but we're going to go down there. We're going to at least get the drive shaft out. We're going to get the speedometer cable out, make sure there's nothing else other than the trans bolts. And if we need to get the exhaust out, we will, but I think the way it's routed way out on the sides. I'm not necessarily sure we need to take it out right now. So we're going to leave it unless I see an area where I think it's going to like get in the way of us pulling the motor out. But I really think those few things is all we have left. I also think, I haven't talked to my painter yet, but I still think, guys, we're probably going to have to take this guy out. I just don't think we're going to be able to tilt that thing enough to get the motor out over this. It'd just be, if this section right here came out, that'd be really nice because we could leave everything else and just take this upper bar. But what I'm thinking is we may leave the closeouts and just take the bolts out, leave the closeouts on both sides, and just take the bolts out here, the bolts out in the bottom, and just lift that thing out and maybe giving us some additional room. Now, I may have to take the grill out as well, but just that much would give me so much more room to come up and, get that motor tilting. But either way, let's get under this thing and see what we need to do. So you can kind of see what I'm talking about. You can see that we need to get the drive shaft out, which is just a couple bolts right there. We'll push that forward and get it out of place, but you can see the way the muffler's routed. There's no like X pipe or anything. So guys, I really don't think we need to do anything there. I also think we may be able to grab the transmission lines at the same time. I'm going to go ahead and get this out while I'm in here. and then I'll move up front and kind of show you guys around the transmission itself, because right now I'm kind of on the side here. These are kind of interesting rear ends. For one, they look like 9 inches the way that the center section bolts in there, but the straps come in, there's bolts or nuts on the backside, and the strap goes around. So it's way easier to pull it out once you get those loose. So we've got that loose, and it's just sitting there. I'm gonna leave it right there for now, and we're gonna move up to the front around the transmission. I'm sure that if I pull this out, although it's leaked quite a bit of fluid, it's probably past that point. I still don't want it dripping in my face while I'm trying to unbolt other things up there. You can see a few things that we're gonna need to undo. For one, obviously the speedometer cable right there. We need to get that guy out of there, and it's leaking, I noticed, around it. The other thing is I probably, I told you I think we can get the trans lines out at the same time. I may just go ahead and undo them. That way we don't have to deal with that. But guys, that's it down here. Aside from, I already got the linkages undone, so I know it looks like I don't. But we can, I guess technically I could take that one out. I'll just take that little pin out, go ahead and get it off there. That way we don't have to deal with it. But that's it. Aside from the transmission bolts, which you can see, you can either unbolt it from the transmission itself, or you can unbolt it from the cross member, which is on each side. So I'm gonna go ahead and do all that stuff. Take all these bolts out. Not really sure on the sizes. We'll just have to, they look mostly 1/2 inch, 5/8, everything's standard. And we'll get these out. I probably am gonna go ahead and take the transmission bolts out, let this transmission drop down. And like I said, I think exhaust, we're probably fine. We're just gonna leave it for now. Let's catch up on what we've got. Got the drive shaft pulled out. You can see it laying on the ground down there. Got a transmission holding the tail shaft, or a jack holding the tail shaft of the transmission. Got the driver's side bolt out, or the mount. It's really odd because it doesn't mount in the center. There's mounts on either side. So I've got the driver's side one out there. You can see that along with that linkage I said I'd pull out. So really not a lot to it, guys. It's just a couple 5/8 bolts that bolt it to the transmission itself, and then some through bolts that go to what I guess you would call a transmission cross member. But either way, got those out. I'm getting ready to work on the other side, but one thing I did want to tell you is after I got those transmission lines loose from the back of the transmission, I went ahead and routed those out, and they're sitting outside draining. So yeah, I think that'll make our life a little easier, so we're not having to try to clear those as well. But guys, we're getting very, very close to hooking a cherry picker up to this thing. The only 2 bolts, after we get the transmission bolt or mount off on this side, the only 2 we've got holding it are those 2 engine mounts, and they're very easy to access. So let's get this other one out and see if we can get the cherry picker over here and figure out a place to hook up. Trans bolt out, transmission or brace on the side. And I did go ahead and take this brace out. You can see it setting up there. And guys, the fenders don't feel any different. So here's how I did it. Went around and took out all the bolts. So the bolts that obviously bolt to the top of the fender here, the closeouts, where the closeouts bolt to the actual cross member, I think this will give us the room we need. Now, I am gonna have to undo this wire. This wire was tucked up underneath. I just don't think I have enough room. I don't wanna go in here and unplug, so we're just gonna unplug from right here, which is, it's odd. These are just spade connections. Isn't that funny how things have came a long way with like weather packs and whatnot? So chances are I'll probably rewire that down the road, but I'm gonna get that unplugged. The only other thing, guys, there's 2 that come up from the bottom. You can see this little spacer here. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna put that in my bag of bolts, nuts and bolts. But I'm gonna see if we can find a way to hook the cherry picker on here. I've been back and forth. I think an exhaust manifold bolt on this side. I don't know on this side. We'll just have to see. I'll figure out something. I really kind of want more of the front of the motor, I guess, than I do the back, because I want that tilt, and I don't have the ability to, I don't have a leveler on mine. I need to order one, honestly, so one with the crank where you can level out the engine. But I don't have one, and I want to pull this all out as one unit, so that may mean that I need to hook it up to the very front, but we'll see. Official, we are loose. So could not find a place, guys, where I felt happy about securing the chain. So ultimately what I did is I took the manifolds off. Honestly, guys, those are the loosest bolts on this entire car. And I am hoping, I ran them down as far as I could. I'm just hoping they'll hold. I put 3 in. You can see I've got washers so the bolt does not pull through the chain, but I put 3 in just in case, just for some added security. And so we're gonna give it a shot. I've lifted it up just a hair, and I've got it off the motor mounts in the front. Everything else is loose. The only thing that's holding it from like probably tilting a little bit is the jack is still back there under the transmission. So I may have to go move it, but I think I'm pretty close to sliding it off of it. So we're gonna continue to pump this thing up and see where it goes. So I'm out here talking to myself. You guys see my mouth moving in the camera, but I think we're close to free. No way we could have got it with the cross member or that radiator support in place. The only thing I drug on, guys, was the exhaust manifold on the passenger side. It was stuck between the transmission dipstick tube and what else? The trans dipstick tube and the starter. So it kind of got wedged up in there. So it probably would have been better had I removed that, but holy cow, do we have a mess here. Holy cow, do I have my work cut out for me now, guys. Look at the absolute mess, which we knew. Look, we knew. But I'm happy that we got it out. You know, we got a lot of cleaning to do. And like I said, guys, this is going to give us so much more room to do what we need to do. So, yeah, we got it out. I've got a huge, and I mean huge amount. Look at all that transmission fluid right there. I don't even know, guys. I'm gonna try to put it up on the Go Jacks and get it scooted over here so we can start cleaning up this nasty mess. I know I'm gonna roll through some of it, but look, we gotta get started on it. After about an hour of cleaning, I've got everything cleaned up. And guys, look, there's gonna be some drips just from the stuff that fell on the K-member as the motor was coming out, but I've got it all tidied up here on a nice little piece of cardboard, trying to keep, you know, some of the junk that's going to fall out of it occasionally off the floor. But look, not too bad, to be real honest with you. I was really happy that I didn't have to get under there, try to take the transmission loose, you know, get the bell housing loose, get the torque converter bolts out. I did not want to do that, guys. I wanted to just drag it all out at as one unit. I actually think I have this thing sold, which is perfect. That's why I've kind of bundled everything up right here, because I don't want it sitting around. I don't want to put it back in the corner. I want this thing out of here. But now that we've got this out, we're going to call this step 1 complete. In the next video on this thing, guys, I'm going to end this video here, but the next video, I think we're going to start taking some of the brake stuff off. So we're going to take the master out. We're going to take the brake lines out. We're going to take, which will make another mess, by the way, and we're going to take maybe some of the suspension apart, but we obviously got some cleaning to do under the hood and whatnot, which will happen as we go. But either way, guys, hopefully you enjoyed watching me struggle get this motor out of there. I know I didn't like set the camera up and show you guys much other than me actually cherry picking the motor out, but hopefully you guys got an idea of what's involved in taking one of these out. The older this stuff, the easier it is, the less wire there is. So anyway, if you guys did enjoy this video, please, like always, smash that thumbs up button. Guys, if you're not subscribed, you got to get subscribed. This thing is going to be wicked when we start putting some of these parts on it with the air ride, the wheels, the LS motor. It's going to be cool. So you got to get subscribed. Hit that bell icon while you're down there. That notifies you every time we drop a new video. And stay tuned, guys, to see what we work on next.